You've downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast, featuring two guys who have absolutely no idea what they're trying to say.
If he has a good offense, he has a good... I'm sorry, let me say it again.
All right, let me think here what I was going to say. I don't know what the hell you want to call him over the
What'd I say?
I was going to say something, and I don't know.
I don't know what it is you're saying, but I like it.
And now, here are your hosts for the Buckeye Leafcast, Andy Evans and the intergalactic Buckeye fan himself, Mr. Chris Stefanik.
It's time to rock and roll, ladies and gentlemen. You've gone and done it again. You've downloaded another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. And folks, I'm out of my friggin' mind right now for two reasons. Number one, we're doing a Saturday recap of the Ohio State football game. Something we've never done before in the history of the Buckeye Leafcast, which is actually kind of cool because that means that I've got more time to do things like plan for a wedding, which I'm getting up against the clock, and my fiance is giving me the what for about getting things in order. So that gives me more time this weekend to get prepared for that. But the second reason I'm out of my friggin' mind to do this Buckeye Leafcast recap is because I'm finally doing it with my man, the intergalactic Buckeye fan himself, Mr. Chris Stefanik. Yeah!
It's good to have you back.
Woo! Dude, you know
Love the reception.
we've only done one podcast so far this season, Chris. If not for one reason or another, either I've fallen ill or we're both too busy to crack the mics. We've only done one, and we're finally getting to do another recap after only 7 friggin' games into the season. This is nuts.
Right, and it only just happens to be probably the most dominant start of the year for the Buckeyes since 1998. I mean,
oh my God,
we're missing it. We're fucking missing it. The greatest. We're not missing it. We're just not talking about it on the Leafcast. But
I know, this is nuts, man. So we're finally getting an opportunity to do another recap, and it comes after another huge blowout win, Chris. The Buckeyes big on Friday night. First Friday night football game since 1959. And it was only the second ever in Ohio State history. And the Buckeyes, once again, bro, look absolutely impressive doing it.
Sometimes the front lines are in our own.
That's what sucks about having to pull up ESPN to look at stats. You get stupid background videos that interrupt you while you're trying to give I see they piss me off so much I can't even think straight right now. I'm trying to give an intro.
Right. You're trying to deliver delicious honey to that sweet, vanilla ice cream sundae.
Yeah. They're interrupting my honey, man. That pisses me off. Hey, ESPN, screw you. Even though I'm going to use your website to look up stats for the game. So I thank you for that one. But anyways, Chris, 52-3, final score, undefeated, 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes just clobbering the Northwestern Wildcats over in Evanston last night. And, you take a look at the stats, Chris, and they don't overly wow you. At least some of them don't. But that was because there were just other situations they put themselves in to where they didn't have to work very hard to score points. So, in a nutshell, Ohio State right now, 7-0, looking unbelievable, and just absolutely torched Northwestern. Let's talk about the game here for a few minutes, and then we'll jump into maybe some other things here in a little bit. But your take on last night's game?
Well, we keep waiting. When is Ohio State going to get tested? Now, we thought maybe it'd be Michigan State. Back in the beginning of the year, we're like, oh, well, Cincinnati will give them a little bit of a test, then they blow them out. It's been every game has been. I think coming into last night, they were averaging 41 point differential. It was number one in the country in point differential, and then they beat Northwestern by 49. It's just dominant. They come out there. They gave a stat last night that Ohio State had scored more points in the second quarter than 111 teams had scored total on the season. It's just unbelievable. I mean, they come out, basically, this is the script. They come out, they feel you out, they see what the other team is doing. Okay, what adjustments has this other team made, because they're playing Ohio State? What wrinkles have they done? They feel them out a little bit. They're like, okay, we got it now. Hammer down, and the game's over at the half. That's been the script, and it's like every single game, that's basically been the script. Basically, that has been the script every single game. And last night was no different. I mean, Northwestern was just completely outclassed. They really, on both sides of the ball, they didn't have an answer. And I don't even, it's almost like, what do you even take away from this game other than just talking about how great Ohio State is, which I'm content to do all day long, of course.
Right.
But it's just like, they were really playing a team that just was not in their class. I mean, this was like a MAC team. They at least Ohio State made them look that way. They just completely dominated them. So, we can talk about individuals. I think that's the thing, the takeaway is to really talk about the talking points, because just general statements, it's like, they're awesome. Next, it's like
next.
Yeah, they're awesome. Well, I mean, what else is there more to say about the overall statements? So, I mean, like some of the individual stuff, I guess, that stood out to me. This is kind of a broken record too, but Justin Fields just keeps getting better and better. He's got a really strong arm. There are players that were saying that his arm is stronger than Dwayne Haskins. I personally don't see it. I mean, Dwayne Haskins was out there throwing freaking laser beams last year, and I haven't seen Haskins quite throw to that level. But he's got plenty of arm strength. There's like more
Fields.
than. Who did I call him? Did I call him Haskins?
You called it, but yeah.
But anyways, Fields has plenty of arm strength. It's definitely much stronger than JT Barrett's. But now he's starting, and I don't know if this is something he worked on in the bye week, but several of the passes I'm watching, he's putting touch on the ball. There's that like 20-yard first touchdown to Olave, and then really on that the second touchdown, he really put it on where Olave is kind of going out the right side of the end zone. Both of those, if you go back and watch the replay, watch the highlights, he's really putting some nice touch on the ball. And then he's so freaking strong. He's got that lower center of gravity where like his legs are like tree trunks, and you can't bring him down with an arm tackle. And so many times, like in this game, Northwestern would get a guy in there. He would be coming straight at Justin Fields. Justin would like take a step to the side, and that's all he would do is take 1-2 steps, and the guy's momentum would keep carrying him forward. So he's like now going he's going towards an area where Justin is no longer there, and he's only able to get like an arm on Fields, and it's just like nothing. I mean, it's like a fly landing on him. It's like the other quarterbacks that would have like spun him around or even brought him down. Getting like clotheslined by a 280-pound defensive end. Justin Fields is like, it doesn't even feel it. These guys are just bouncing off of him, and so we're looking at individual performances. He looks great. We can talk a lot about the offensive line because I was a little worried about the offensive line. But I mean, what was your takeaways from this game?
Well, Justin Fields, 18 of 23, 194 yards, ties a season, and I guess you could say a career high, 4 touchdown passes in a single game, matching what he did against. Let me see, what did he have? He had. I just had it and I lost it. Anyways, that is a season high. Yeah, he had 4 against Florida Atlantic, 4 against Miami of Ohio, and then he had 4 last night against Northwestern. Very efficient, 18 to 23. You take a look at Justin's stats throughout the year, and the dude has not thrown more than 25 passes in a single game. So he's right there, just 20 to 25 passes every single game. And the worst completion rate that he had was 17 of 25. Actually, no, I take that back. It was against Indiana when he was 14 of 24, 58% for that football game. But, just efficient. 78% of his passes complete. He only threw 23, but he completed 18, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, was only sacked 1 time. Now, I get it that Northwestern is not even close to being the Northwestern that they played in the Big Ten championship game last year.
They are good defensively, though.
Not bad.
they're not great. They're not an elite defensive team, but they're like a decent defensive team. You know what I mean? If not, like, better than decent. So go on.
Well, and these stats are a little bit skewed because, well, actually, they're kind of right on. You know, last night was only Northwestern's sixth game of the season. They were walking into that game 1-4, 0-3 in the conference. They're now 1-5. So, you know, a lot of teams out there, they've already played 7 games, like Ohio State, and had a bye week. So Northwestern, I guess, has already had 2 bye weeks because each team now in the Big Ten gets 2 bye weeks. And I guess Northwestern's eaten up both of their byes because that was only their 6th game last night. After last night, 6 games, you know, they're giving up 345 yards a game. Going into it with 5 games, I'm not sure exactly the stats, but I think they were like, I don't know, middle of the conference, like 5th or 6th maybe in total defense. So not a terrible defense, but when you're facing an offense like Ohio State, you're probably going to get shredded a little bit. And overall, the Buckeyes, once again, not overly gaudy team stats. You know, 22 first downs, 480 total yards through the air because our boy Chug, the Chugger, Chris Chuganov, came in the game there early fourth quarter. And both he and Fields combined for 201 yards through the air. The Buckeyes piled up through a bevy of rushers. I believe they had like 5 different guys run the football last night for a total of 279 yards. Of course, our boy, J.K., just another 100-yard game for the junior from Texas. 18 carries, 121 yards, punched it in the end zone. But, Chris, how satisfying, how relieving is it to feel that you've got a guy like Master Teague III backing up J.K. Dobbins. 7 carries, 96 yards, including a 73-yard scamper there in the fourth quarter where he just busted it up the middle, maybe had one guy touch him, otherwise speed just broke loose. And for a guy his size who's kind of the opposite, if you will, of J.K., a little bit. You know, both of these guys almost bring the same attributes to the table, but you look at Teague, he's kind of more of the bruiser, you know? But man, dude, he gets out in the open, and you can kiss it goodbye for the most part. J.K. last night, he almost had that touchdown run. He had a 68-yarder where he was tackled at the 5-yard line. So the fact that the Buckeyes have the kind of rushing game they right now with that 1-2 punch of Dobbins, which Dobbins is the main punch, but Teague, boy, he can come right back and just clock you with the other fist. Because he's just, it's just so satisfying to know that they've got a guy like
just so easily moves the chains. They're going to throw again.
And here we go again. Stupid ESPN, screw you, trying to talk over me, bastards. But anyways, Chris, yeah, you know, how could you not love Ohio State's rushing attack right now?
Well, I mean, that's why Justin Fields doesn't have more than 25 passes. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Ohio State's getting like 6-7 yards a carry in most of these games, right, on the season. So you look at like JK's numbers in the season, Master Teague's number on the season. I think they're both getting like 6 yards a carry on the season. So if you're getting 6 yards a carry, there's kind of not a whole lot of reason to pass. I mean, the only real reason to pass is just to keep the defense honest. And because at this point, you know, if you're Ryan Day, you're working on stuff. You're trying to get Justin Fields seasoned, trying to get the wide receivers seasoned, you know, get everybody practiced up on passing for games when they play, like the Wisconsins, Penn States, Clemson's, Alabama's, whoever they're going to face, hopefully, knock on wood, in the playoffs. You're going to need to be able to do more than run the ball. But it's like they were running the ball so great. Why? You know, it's honestly, it's like a lot can go wrong in the passing game. And I think it was Trussell who says, you know, when you pass the ball, 3 different things can happen, and 2 of them aren't good.
Now, that was Woody saying. That was Woody. Woody said it, yeah. I mean, Tressel may have said it as well, but I think, yeah, he was kind of re-quoting Woody. You know, when you throw the football, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are bad. Incomplete interception, or you complete it.
Right. So Yeah, the running attack looks great. A lot of that's the offensive line, but a lot of it also is, they're looking good. I mean, J.K. Dobbins on that 68-yard TD run, I mean, he made a guy look silly. He got that guy in the open field, did a little juke left and right, and then just went right by him. That guy had him dead to rights, and he just left him looking foolish. And Master Teague, he reminds me of Carlos Hyde. That's what I was saying after the Michigan State game in the Leaf cast. Just, a guy who's like 220, 230 pounds, but yet is the fastest running back on the team, is one of the fastest players in the team, supposedly running a sub 4.40, which was what Carlos Hyde did. So it's very, in my mind, it's very reminiscent to, he's like just a clone of Carlos Hyde. And, if that's your backup, I think you're doing pretty good. And Marcus Crowley, I mean, they had 3 running backs with runs of over 50 yards. Marcus Crowley busting off a 53-yarder with, the backups in there. So, not even counting, DeMario McCall, who, got some time in there before it was backup time in relief of J.K. Dobbins, giving J.K. a blow. So
1 carry, 7 yards. DeMario McCall, I think his time at OSU is done. He even got supplanted returning kicks by Garrett Wilson at one point there later in the game. That's just a shame to see, man. DeMario McCall, I've really had just super high hopes for him like every season the last 3 years, and just not going to happen. He just got hurt too often. But
yeah, I mean, he's there's other guys. I mean, I like Garrett Wilson better as a kick returner. I can't wait to see them. I'm hoping they start going with Jamison Williams as the kick returner, because I think he could be really spectacular. I think that's probably the fastest guy on the team. That's the Paris Campbell replacement right there. And it's looking like he may not. I thought he was going to redshirt all the way because he was pretty skinny coming in, maybe 165, 170 something, which really just isn't big enough to play at this level of football. But they had him in there last night catching balls with the first team offense. It was like the first string offensive line's out there. Justin Fields is at quarterback, and Jamison Williams is out there. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute now. He's in the top 6. He's in the rotation. He's not, because we've seen him before, but it's always been in mop-up time. And then he was also out there on that punt block team. He almost blocked 2 punts in the game where he was just a hair short of getting the block. So, if he's a starter on special teams and in the rotation on offense, I think, he might actually not redshirt this year. But yeah, I mean, back to your point, I mean, DeMario, it's one of those things. You go to a program like Ohio State, there's so many dudes in the room. You could be really good. Like, I think if DeMario McCall is playing on Northwestern, he's probably got a role, He might be.
Oh, for sure.
He's probably one of their dudes, If he's playing, he could be like a stud running back at a number of middle tier schools. I'm guessing. I mean, barring he did have those injuries, so but like right now that he's healthy, but there's just so many dudes at Ohio State that it's like, hey, what can you say? It's you could go through the list of guys who transferred out of Ohio State and been like all conference and even NFL players, but they couldn't start at Ohio State. I remember like Ron Tanner went and
Tanner.
Yeah,
more. Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did he go to Kentucky? He went somewhere, and I think he actually went and was like made an NFL team after that. He couldn't get on the field at Ohio State. And there was I can't remember his name now, but there was recently a defensive end that was couldn't get on the field here. It ended up being like all conference. This was just like in the last couple of years at another school. So it happens. They've got just so much talent. I was the announcers last night in the game on BTN were talking about how the second string if Ohio State just decided they were going to field the second string the whole rest of the season, they'd still be competitive in the Big Ten. They wouldn't be at the bottom of the Big Ten. They might be in the middle. Honestly, they would be, as far as talent goes, they would be green if they put their second string out there. But as far as like talent, like recruiting rankings, potential ceiling, are they going to be playing on Sundays kind of thing? They'd still, even with their second string, would probably be the most talented team in the Big Ten. The only team that would give them, the only first strings that would give Ohio State's second string a run as far as talent, ceiling, would be Penn State. Because Penn State's been consistently right behind Ohio State in recruiting. But, I quoted a stat. Somebody took the time, and I don't know how they figured this out, but they took the time to add up all the top 100 kids. If you were a top 100 kid coming out of high school. So, Justin Fields was number 2 behind Trevor Lawrence. I know Chase Young was in the top 10. Zach Harrison was in the top 10, and so on and so forth, right? If you add up all the top 100 kids that are currently on rosters in the Big Ten, Ohio State had as many as Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, Rutgers, Illinois, Indiana. So basically the entire Big Ten East, including their top 3 rivals, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, combined, Andy, combined.
Insane, dude. I know, that's ridiculous. I heard that stat too, and I was like, come on. This can't be right. That's crazy.
But yeah, and the other thing, I think I said this last week or after the Michigan State game on the Leafcast, I looked at Michigan's roster. Currently, Ohio State has the number 1 recruiting class for 2020. Michigan has the number 2. So this is the number 2 class in the Big Ten.
Big Ten, not overall in the country, but
right.
At least in the conference. Okay.
Right. Number 2, and they're top 25. Michigan is maybe even top 10 in their recruiting class. But number 2 in the Big Ten, the number 1 player in Michigan's class would be the number 9 player in Ohio State's class. Just to kind of put this in perspective, the talent gap between Ohio State. So, honestly, here's the thing. I've not gotten this before. So, as much of a talent gap as there is between the ones, Ohio State's ones, and the other team's ones, it's way, way bigger, the talent gap between our 2s and the other team's 2s. And I've not understood why when you put backups in, why we don't even see them blow the doors off them even more. And I think it is because teams start going vanilla. They start Chugs only passed it 2 times. When he played a whole quarter and only passed it twice.
Yeah.
So you start seeing teams go vanilla and stuff like that. So that's why I think it is. But I'm like, why do they not blow the doors off people? Because the talent gap is so huge. And the reason you saw him get 2 last night because one, the backups got 2 interceptions, and they you had that big run by Master Teague, a 73-yard run by Master Teague.
Well, and then hell, you had that 53-yarder right basically at the end of the game by Crowley.
Right.
To your point about Marcus Crowley.
Right. So it's just that was the first time where I was like, oh, you know what? Our second string is really taking it to the second string of the other teams. But because that was, I think, and that last night I was just thinking about it. I'm like, hey, this is the first time I've really seen our backups really taking it to the other team's backups. And I think it's just, like I said, they just go vanilla. I'm like, that must be it, because otherwise the gap should just be enormous.
Well, and you touched on Jamison Williams. Yeah, at this point, he's not getting redshirted because we passed the 4-game redshirting status.
I don't think he played in all those earlier games.
Yeah, but no, I don't think that's how it works. It's
no. You get 4 games. You could be playing in the bowl game and still redshirt.
You sure about that?
I'm 99% sure. I'm not going to bet my daughter's life on it or anything, but
well, good. Let's not go getting too crazy. All right, just do your wife's, and that's fine.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I will bet my wife's.
I'm gonna have to look that up, man, because
it looks like
I want to say after the
4 games. It doesn't say. Yeah.
I want to say after the 4th game period, if they played after that, doesn't matter if they played in 1 game, 2 game, because that sounds crazy that you could play in the Michigan game, in the bowl game, and the conference championship game, and maybe one of the postseason games if you got into the playoff, and then still get redshirted after that late in the season. I don't know. That sounds crazy to me. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I've even heard analysts talking about how, if you've got a position that's kind of thin, but you got a guy who's say you've got really only 2 running backs. All we really had was Master Teague and JK, and it was pretty much it. Like the other guys just got all injured or something. They all transferred. And so you've got another guy that's a freshman that you're like, you know what? I really don't want to burn his year of eligibility just to when he's not he's only going to get in there in mop up duty. I just don't really want to do it. But if JK or Master Teague goes down, we're going to need a second running back. So I'm not going to, even though we're like blowing out Rutgers, we're blowing out Miami of Ohio in game 3 or something. I'm going to save him for the last 4 games of the season in case there's an injury and I need him. And that way if there's an injury, then he's going to play. But I don't want to blow, and then he could actually still, like, say, JK, in that scenario, JK goes down in the Big Ten championship game or goes down in the Michigan game. He could play Michigan Big Ten title into playoff games and still redshirt. So I heard analysts make that even argument, like, should you burn a guy's 4 games if you're in a position? And the argument was no, you shouldn't. So anyways, yeah, it's
Well, okay, now hold on a second. So I am looking at an article. It was over a year ago in 2018 on Sports Illustrated, and I mean it does say that Division I college football players will now be able to play in up to 4 games per season without using a season of eligibility. If that's the case, I don't know, man. I thought it was if you played after the 4th game of the year, because from my knowledge, the NCAA, that was always what it was. After like halftime of the 3rd game of the season, if you played in that game, you lost your red shirt. You couldn't just go, we're going to play you in the 1st game of the season, then we're going to play you in the 6th game, then we're going to play you in the last game against Michigan, and we're going to play you in the conference championship game or the bowl game, and you still maintain that season of eligibility. I'm sorry, if you're playing that late into the year, you should lose that red shirt. That should be gone.
I like the new rule. I like it. I mean, and honestly, the old rule, you're wrong. It wasn't. If you play in the, past the halftime of the 3rd game, you lose your eligibility. It's like if you played a single snap, and I don't care what game the season was, 1st game or last game, if you played a single snap, you lost a whole year of eligibility. That's what the old rule was.
No, because I know that. No, you're wrong.
There was
I know
injuries.
there were times.
No. There was. You could get medical red shirt. Now the medical red shirt was based off of the 4 games thing.
No. I know for a fact there were games where I would see guys out on the field for like the 1st or 2nd game of the season, and then they wouldn't play the rest of the year, and they would have been redshirted. No, for a fact. So I'm sorry, sir. You're wrong.
Well, we will just agree to disagree at this moment.
So, anyways, getting back to Jameson Williams, whether he's going to be able to maintain a red shirt or not, which actually, let's look it up right now. As far as the games that he has participated in, this one, I know there's a website that has snap counts per game.
And I think that would be, I'm like such a geek, that would be kind of cool for me to see, like, who's getting more snaps? Tuff Borland or Baron Browning kind of thing. How many snaps did Jameson Williams get? But I don't know what that website is. I guess I could just always Google it, huh?
Now, I will tell you this. According to the official stats that came out from the Ohio State University after last night's game, Jameson Williams is listed as having played in 6 games.
Okay, so he's already well into it.
So he
must be a special teams guy, and he must have been on that punt block team the whole time. Because well, but at the same time though, the backups have been in every single game. Well, did they get in versus Michigan State? I think even versus Michigan State at the very end they got in. Or did Justin Fields? No, I think maybe Justin Fields was out there taking a knee at the end. I'm trying to remember.
Well, I can tell you this. Chris Chugunov did not play against both Nebraska and Michigan State. He is not listed as having played in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not listed in either of those games.
Well, that's this is going to bring up an interesting thing. I do have one beef with this team. It's hard to find complaints. I'm not the only person who's made this beef, but I'm gonna. It's like 38-3, and Justin Fields is still out there playing. Chase Young,
I agree,
is still out there. I was like, when it was like 31-3 at the half, I'm like, he's done for the day. He's done because.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Northwestern. You could put the second string out there. Northwestern's not getting 31 points on Ohio State. They're 128th in the country in scoring offense coming into this game. It's not happening. I'm like,
yeah, Ohio State's
you ruined your season. I mean, this is a potential national championship that you ruin by putting Fields out there in meaningless time, Chase Young out there in meaningless time. I'm like, if you don't want to pull all the starters, okay, and go all backups. But, like, what guys, if you lost them, it would be, like, the drop-off to the second guy would be huge. I mean, Chase Young is, like, the best player in college, so that as great as the defensive line depth is, the second best guy on that team isn't nearly as good as Chase Young. So I would say he's irreplaceable. Justin Fields is irreplaceable. Almost everybody else is probably replaceable at this point. We've got, like, the drop-off to the next guy isn't enormous. But I'm like, my God, at least take them out. So and it's been happening all season long. Like, seriously, like, you couldn't have put Chug out there in the fourth quarter versus Nebraska or Michigan State. I mean, those games were in hand.
Yeah, I agree.
Right,
I was a little flummoxed. I was a little flummoxed by that as well. I was curious as to why he still had them out there, and.
So there's this thing. So there's such a thing as a risk reward. In investments, we talk about this all the time. Like, well, what's the risk? If I buy this stock, what's the risk? Well, the risk is they go bankrupt and it goes to zero. Well, what's their potential reward? Well, they're really cutting edge technology. They're doing something nobody else is doing. This thing could go up, 10 times, 100 times what I'm buying it at right now, very quickly. You're like, okay, so. I'm risking $1,000. I put $1,000 in this stock. I'm risking $1,000, but my potential reward is like $100,000. That's a pretty good risk-reward ratio. It's like, what's the risk-reward ratio of Justin Fields being out there when it's 38-3? I'm like, the reward is, I guess he gets a little more practice, and your risk is bye-bye Big Ten championship, bye-bye national title. Are you freaking kidding me? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It was interesting because my boy Pat Murphy from Bucknuts 247 Sports tweeted
the glorious
out
shaved head.
Yes, Pat likes to keep his hair low, man. I don't think I've ever seen it sprout practically past his scalp, but it's not that short. But
he's got a little more than Laurinaitis, but only a little more.
yeah, exactly. Good comparison. Yeah, old Jimmy Laurinaitis, his is down to the scalp. Pat, yeah, he's got a few seedlings sprouting a little bit more than James Laurinaitis. But at any rate, he texted out during the game, or not texted, but tweeted out during the game about how he was hearing some guff from Ohio State fans who were complaining about the very same thing that you are saying, Chris. And his response, I kind of scratched my head at it a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what he meant, but that Ryan Day had stated during the week, hey, like, I know how important it is to get the other guys, off the, other guys in the game, the backups essentially in the game without hurting the all-star first stringers. But that didn't happen, and he said, so yeah, Ryan Day knows this, and it's his ass on the line. And I just kind of thought, well, Pat, what do you mean by that? I was thinking of tweeting back at him, but he was busy doing his stuff over there in Evanston, so I was like, nah. But at any rate, I thought, well, if it's Ryan Day's ass on the line, and you are up 38-3, and it's. He had the starters in there, Chris, till at least early fourth quarter. Then we finally saw Chug. Saw Master Teague. And Master Teague is a guy that we have seen throughout the season come in way earlier than that. And I don't ever remember seeing Teague as late in the ball game as we saw him last night. Like, I don't think he did come in until maybe I think there was like one run that he had at some point in like the third quarter where they finally brought him in, or maybe late second half. And then you didn't see him again until like early fourth quarter, and they're still running Dobbins. And at that point, Dobbins over $1 for the game. He's got a touchdown, had a receiving touchdown too at that point. So he technically had 2 scores in the game, still in early fourth quarter, and you're bombing Northwestern. And yeah, at that point, even like midway through the third quarter, it's like, come on, man. You know, do you not have enough faith in the backups to be able to hold off Northwestern right now? And you know what, actually, I do remember what Ryan Day said, because Ryan Day felt that Northwestern, being a night game over there, could be the type of game where if you put your scrubs, and they're not scrubs, we know that, but you know, that's just kind of a general term you use for second and third and fourth and fifth stringers, water boys, you know, locker room managers, whoever gets in the game at that point, pulling people from the stands as well. But, you know, the backups essentially getting in the game, he felt that could be the type of game that if you get the backups in too early, that it could get out of hand. But as we've just been talking about, and I think Ryan Day knows this, but there are probably situations, too, where he's like, okay, next week we've got Wisconsin. Now, I don't want to get these guys beat up, but then again, I want them to kind of get as much PT as possible, because the backups are not going to be playing a whole lot, if at all, at least in certain zones and groups, than others will when it comes to the Wisconsin game. So, but, I mean, come on, man. Northwestern, that is the kind of game where it's like, okay, I could kind of get where you're trying to kind of keep their game type mentality, you know, going on, so that they are a little readier for Wisconsin. But then again, on the other hand, you don't want these dudes getting hurt in a stupid play, because you need them next week for Wisconsin. So I guess a double-edged sword in a way. And, they were pulled early fourth quarter, so it wasn't like they were out there the entire game. But there was still an opportunity, I think, to get them off the field a little bit sooner and get some of those backups in and get them some time on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. But
so
while we're on this topic, though, I will say this: even though the Day could have pulled starters earlier, frankly, all season long, he could have pulled starters earlier than we did. Ohio State still has to be the most rested team in the country, with just how many 40-point average differential, per game. I mean, it's like every game. I mean, other than I think it was Michigan State, I guess Nebraska. Out of their 7 games, 5 of them, the starters haven't had to go 4 quarters. And from several of those, it was not even 3 quarters. It was 2.5. So that's kind of cool. That's going to help down the road, wear and tear on the body, aches and pains. Football's a rough sport. So that's one thing I feel pretty good about. And also, another thing about that, too, is if you do have an injury, the guy coming in, it's not like, he's wide-eyed, hasn't seen the field all year. He's been out there
next man up.
Yeah, he's been out there every freaking game, or at least 5 games. Petit Ferrer had to come in last night because Thayer Mumford's been dealing with back spasms, and Alabi was out. I haven't heard what Alabi was out for, if that's an injury or a disciplinary thing. But so 2 of our top 3 tackles were out, so we had to go with the number 4 tackle, NPF. And it's he's your number 4 tackle, but at the same time, he's basically played in every game, because of all these blowouts. So that's kind of cool too. And
and that's huge. That is absolutely huge, coming down the line and playing the Wisconsins of the world, the Penn States of the world, even the smelly rodents of the world. And then you get into a Big Ten championship game. Maybe you have a rematch with Whiskey. Maybe you take on somehow an upstart, row the boat, PJ Fleck-led Minnesota Golden Gopher team, who's shaking some heads right now and popping some eyeballs at 6-0 and ranked 20th in the country. And then, if Ohio State then is lucky enough to get into the playoff, you're really going to need that kind of experience going up against the LSUs, Alabamas, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, whoever it is that's going to make it into the playoff this year. And one area, Chris, that kind of experience I've seen more so on any position on the team has been the defensive line. Dude, they are just so deep, so stacked, so stout on the defensive line. They can put guys like Javonte Jean-Baptiste, guys like Zach Harrison early in the game, and they can still come in and make an impact. And having guys that are that talented be able to come in that early in the game and provide you that level of play and get that kind of experience has been instrumental, I think, in the defense playing as well as they have. There have been other reasons, don't get me wrong. Jeff Hafley, Al Washington, Greg Madison. I mean, what Ryan Day did as far as changing the defensive coaching staff has been a godsend and a miracle. And we talked about it a little bit, and we'll get into that in a second. But having that experience on the defensive line and that kind of depth has been instrumental as well, providing the health and the freshness of the defensive line being able to put pressure on the quarterback, and you can sink your dudes back and play zone, and the defensive line is creating such havoc, you don't have to blitz very often and come up with these, super creative blitz packages where you're sending in a safety or a corner or, linebackers coming one off through the gap between the left tackle and the left guard and one coming around the edge where the tight end is, stuff like that. But that's just been huge, I think, is the depth on the defensive line.
Yeah, so this is fun. So starters, you got Chase Young, Jonathan Cooper, Devon Hamilton, and Deshaun Cornell. Second string, you got at the ends, you got Tyler Friday, Tyreek Smith. You got BB, and you've got Togiai. Third string, we're down to third string. Zach Harrison, number 1 defensive end in the country. Like top 10, top 5 player overall coming out of high school last year. Third string, other defensive end, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who is a physical freak and he was like unblockable in the spring game and has looked really good when he's come out and played for Ohio State. That's just those 2 guys would start at a whole lot of other Big Ten teams. Of other Big Ten teams. They would start. That's our third string. Third string defensive tackles. Antoine Jackson. 5-star kid coming out of high school. 5 freaking star kid, Antoine Jackson. And he's our third string. He's looking really good when he's been in there. But, it's like there's so many guys ahead of him. But 5-star kids are third. He would be starting at most schools. And then the third string defensive tackle is Jerron Cage, who at least is not embarrassing himself out there. But that's
Haskell Garrett. You forgot about him. Haskell Garrett's been seeing a ton of time.
Well, Haskell Garrett's. Did I not? Oh, I actually had Togiai and BB. Haskell's basically been playing in that second string. But yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. So it would be Haskell. So let's see. It would be Togiai.
I don't even know if you have technically.
At this point, Haskell's probably ahead of BB, honestly.
That's crazy.
Because he's playing a lot and playing really well. So I would probably go Haskell and Togiai as your second string, and then you're looking at BB and Antoine Jackson as your third string. BB definitely. BB was starting for Ohio State last year, so he would. Yeah, that starting. So your third string, you've got Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Zach Harrison, BB Landers, and frickin' Antoine Jackson. That's like that team. That was your starters. If Ohio State went with that as our starters, with everybody else that's around them, they're still probably 7-0 right now, easily. Let alone like how many that would be a good starting front four for any team in this conference, and probably better than just about every team, if not better than all the other teams in the Big Ten. And it's our third string. So sorry.
So now what about?
What about the linebackers? Going into so much detail there. Linebackers. So, like, if I'm looking at areas on the team, what's the weakest unit? It's probably linebackers is the weakest. And then as far as like depth goes, the offensive line, they don't go 10 deep, on the offensive line. They go when everybody's healthy, they go 7 deep. But the starters on the offensive line are fantastic. Starters on the linebackers are not fantastic, but they're serviceable. So Malik Harrison looks really good. He looks like an all Big Ten kind of player.
He's the only one as far as I'm concerned. Tuf Borland, I don't know. I don't think he's still fully healed from this Achilles injury. There was a tweet last night where somebody retweeted video from that ref cam that the Big Ten Network was doing, and there was a play where Tuf Borland completely overshot the gap where the running back was coming through and then tried to stop and turned like back to flail his arms at the running back and just slipped and fell on the ground. And I mean, just looked bad. I mean, Tuf Borland, that one interception he had against Cincinnati, that's basically been it. And it's really sad to see because Tuf Borland, tough kid, lives up to his name, good kid, good student, but it's just this, ever since that Achilles injury, man, he has just not been himself. And Pete Werner, once again, Pete Werner, great kid, solid student. But when it comes to, he's a tweener. He's too small for linebacker. He's too big for defensive back. He's got good speed for a linebacker, but otherwise, Pete Werner, he overruns some plays. Now, he'll have flashes here and there where it's like, whoa, and same with Tuf Borland. They both, oh, hey, all right. Hey, they're back. All right, great play. And then the next play just, But Malik Harrison is the one guy who just seems to be consistent every game.
Right. And I tell you what, Baron Browning has flashed really nicely this year. He looks like if he can make the step that he made from last year to this year, if he can do that again from this year to next year, he's got the potential to be like All-American, top 3 rounds of the draft kind of guy. He needs to make another step. But even if he just plays like how he's been playing this year, continues that, it's pretty good. It's not Malik Harrison good, but it's pretty good. Physically, he's as gifted as anybody out there. He's got that.
Well, why don't you tell everybody what you told me in that text yesterday,
right?
Which I found to be very interesting.
Right. So one of the big differences from last year to because Browning just looked lost out there last year, absolutely lost, is that it's come out that Bill Davis never taught Browning how to read film. Browning did not know how to watch film and break down film. And Bill Davis never taught him. So this year he's learning it for the first time with Al Washington. And the game, he's starting to not look lost out there. He's like, oh, I actually recognize what's going on now that I know how to break down film. So, this is the thing. Whenever Bill Davis was hired, it raised some eyebrows because, one, of course he was the best man at Urban Meyer's wedding. And two, he had never coached a down. He's a very long career coaching, but had never coached a single game at the college level. It had always been at the NFL level. In the NFL, my understanding of the NFL is there is very little player development happens at the NFL. You better get your player development in college. So that's they say, look, if you're not a finished product after 3 years, you probably want to go back. Even though you could get drafted, you probably want to go back because you're not going to get to develop any further in the NFL. And it's going to help you. It could be the difference between you get cut from your team in the second year and you have a 10-year career. Is that coming back for your 4th year? Because that's your chance to develop. And Bill Davis came in with that mindset that I'm not here to develop players. I'm just here, to be like a game day coach or whatever. And so you saw Browning was just lost out there. So that's why I say I have big hopes for Browning next year, because this is kind of he's still learning. There's still a lot of room. His ceiling's super high because of his physical gifts. And there's still reason to believe that he can reach that potential, because it's not like he's known what he's supposed to be doing this whole time and just hasn't put it all together. Maybe he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't have maybe what's going on upstairs or whatnot. It's no, he was just never taught before. So now it's okay, well, what can this guy be once he's got a second year of knowing how to break down film, a second year of, watching the the plays, and like, they talk about the game slowing down, and then how when the game slows down for you, how it's, it's like I'm picturing like scenes from the Matrix where, bullets are coming and you're just kind of stepping aside and the bullet misses you. That's what happens when the game slows down, right? And Baron Browning is essentially a freshman this year as far as being able to break down film. It's the first he's learned it. And the biggest jump always comes from, well, not always, but typically the biggest jump comes from your freshman to sophomore year. So I think Browning's going to be awesome next year, barring injuries. And
well, that's been one other thing that's kind of plagued him a little bit throughout his career here at Ohio State is the injury factor.
Yeah. So we'll see. I didn't hear why he was out today. He didn't make the trip to Evanston. I don't know if that was an injury or if a disciplinary thing, but they did say he's going to play next week. In the post game, somebody asked Day, is he going to play? And they're like, he'll play next week, which almost makes me think it's like disciplinary, because if it was injury, it'd be like, wouldn't there be some doubt? You get, well, we'll have to see how his ankle's coming along. You know what I mean? It's like, no, he'll play for sure next week. It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, so I like Browning. I like Malik Harrison. But it is the weakest unit on the team. I mean, you've got guys that are just studs. I mean, it's like, Okudah's picked to be, probably the first defensive back taken in the draft, the top 10 kind of pick. Sean Wade looks like he could be that kind of guy too, honestly. I mean, he's not.
Oh, baby, is he coming along or what?
Man,
in fact, he's pretty much that whole bullet position that they talked about in the preseason, that is now non-existent because Sean Wade has basically come in at that third defensive back, the nickel spot, as some people call it, and has completely wiped out the whole Brendan White bullet position, which when you look at the depth chart, Brendan White is still listed as the starter at the SS/LB position, which is the bullet, and he got in late last night, Chris.
Right.
Brendan White finally got in the game. Brendan White was a guy that everybody was like, holy crap, finally, we've got a safety who's coming in and coming up, making plays to stop the run. He's playing great passing defense. And now he's completely lost because Sean Wade has come in and virtually taken his spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying.
Unbelievable. And that defensive secondary, man, let's talk about them for a second. Defensive secondary, you got a guy who's going to play on Sundays like Sean Wade, who, quite frankly, I think is better than Damon Arnett and is probably neck and neck and might even be better than Okudah. I know Okudah stat-wise at least has more interceptions right now this season than Sean Wade, but nonetheless, in fact, I don't think Sean Wade's got a single pick, but still, Sean Wade, man, yeah, he is just, boy, you can just tell he has really, since like the tail end of last season, all throughout this season, Sean Wade has been that one defensive back who has been super impressive. Damon Arnett, basically, one play, Miami. He had a nice play last night where he crushed the running back, I think, in the backfield on a screen play. But otherwise, Damon Arnett, one play against Miami of Ohio. An unbelievable acrobatic interception that he returned for, 96 yards or something crazy for a touchdown. But still, Damon Arnett has not been overly impressive. Jeffrey Okudah's looked better. Sean Wade's looked amazing. But to know that you got guys like Seven Banks, Amir Reep, obviously you've got a guy like Jordan Fuller back there just policing the secondary and occasionally having to come up and play the run. They've and even a guy like Josh Proctor too, who's gotten in some games and made a little bit of noise. In fact, he had an interception first game of the season against Florida Atlantic. But nonetheless, secondary too, looking much better and much more improved than they were last year.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I'll say this about Damon Arnett. Damon Arnett's been kind of a fan favorite whipping boy for Ohio State for a few years now. He actually, if it wasn't for, he's good for like one pass interference a game. And in the past, I mean, that's an improvement actually, because in the past, like last year, he was good for 2 or 3 a game, right? he gets a little handsy, but he is right there with the guy he's covering. He is right. Every time you watch Damon Arnett, I mean, that's a little bit of hyperbole every time, but generally speaking, he's right there with the wide receiver, and it's just sometimes he gets a little handsy. If you would just tone that back, he's actually, for your third cornerback, not bad. I mean, for a third cornerback, he is not too bad. And especially this year, if you could kind of forget about his whole career, because this year he's putting, he's made strides, right? So yeah, that secondary looks good. They're pretty deep. I don't think there's a huge drop off from Fuller to Josh Proctor. They really like this Cam Brown kid, who's like the fourth cornerback. He comes in whenever Arnett's tweaked this or breaks his hand or whatnot. And Seven Banks and Amir Reep are also coming on, and Marcus Williamson. Those guys are all getting a lot of snaps, which is good, because next year we might just lose all four of our starting defensive backs. I mean, that Fuller and Arnett are gone because they're seniors, but Okudah, he's probably going to be a top 10 pick, and the way Shaun Wade's playing, I think there's a real good chance Shaun Wade is gone, just because he's going to be a top 3 round pick. Right? If the draft was tomorrow, he'd be a top 3 round pick. I'm guessing, and by the end of the year, he might even be higher than that.
If that's the case, I mean, Ohio State's entire starting secondary is going to be completely different come next year, but understandably so. And just to let you know, I have been kind of reading some different articles here about redshirt eligibility, and I do have to apologize to you, sir. A couple of the articles I read they're saying that playing a single snap constituted losing your eligibility. I never thought that was the case. I always heard differently, but I guess I was always under the wrong impression. Yeah. And to you, sir, I tip my cap, I eat some crow, and I do apologize for having said you're wrong, because apparently I'm an idiot and I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I do know that if somebody
and I love you
played for like whatever it was, 3 or 4 games, what it used to be for the medical red shirt, if they played that number or less, and even if they weren't injured, but that's all they ended up playing, like a lot of times the colleges would try to say, yeah, he was a little banged up. I mean, I think he kind of was sore after one of the games. Can we get a medical red shirt? And so just knowing that they didn't want to burn it over, like really, he only came in and played a freaking snap. But there was plenty of times for schools, like especially really honest athletic departments, where like a guy, like that scenario I gave, you only have 2 running backs. You need 2. Somebody goes down. And you're like, crap, well, okay, so, you only have J.K. Dobbins and Master Teague. You're playing Michigan. Master Teague goes down. J.K. Dobbins is out there and has like an 80-yard run and gets stopped at the 5-yard line. He's completely gassed. You need somebody else to go in. You're like, all right, you pull this kid, you burn his red shirt, have him come in to like give J.K. a blow. And then like, Two snaps later, like JK's back out there, and that's all the kid ever plays. And you're like, are you freaking kidding? I mean, like stuff like that did happen, and kids lost a whole freaking year over stuff like that. I mean, it was silly. It was really silly. Yeah, that's why I really like this new rule. It's just like, come on now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, once again, I was under the impression that it was if you played in like the second half of the third game of the season, then you were ruled ineligible. Yeah. However,
now that you know the rule,
this is like
you haven't had a chance to think about it. But now that you know that what the old rule really was, you might feel this new rule is actually an improvement.
It's going from one extreme to the other. You know what I'm saying? It's nobody's invited to let's let everybody play, and I still think it's crazy that you can let a kid go an entire year and then play him in like the last 4 games of the season. He can help you win a national championship, and then he can get redshirted and still come back and have 4 more years to go?
Well, how about this scenario? The kid gets injured in summer camp, fall camp leading into the season. He's not medically cleared to play till the last 4 games this season. He comes out, plays 4 games. It's like the reverse medical red shirt. In the past, you could have gotten a medical red shirt for you only play in 4 games due to injury. It doesn't matter if you play 4 games and get injured, or if you're injured and then play 4 games. You could get the medical red shirt. They would give you that. Historically, they would give you that in that scenario. So but it had to be, you had to make the case to the NCAA that it was medical. And I don't know what paperwork that involves, if you have to include doctor's reports and stuff like that. But historically, you were able to play in the last 4 games if you missed the first 8 due to injury. And still redshirt.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about this one before I think I can give a final synopsis. And I may never be able to give a final synopsis, but it still just sounds, I don't know, crazy to me. But
well, there you have it, folks. That'll conclude this edition of the Northwestern recap of the Buckeye Leafcast. Be sure to download the Wisconsin-Ohio State preview coming up here in just a couple of days, where Andy and Chris not only break down Ohio State's big game against the Badgers this coming Saturday, but also have a little tete-a-tete regarding some recent computer rankings that came out by a one Jeff Sagarin. It's going to be one explosive show you do not want to miss. Until then, everybody take care and go Bucks.
Hey, nonetheless, Chris, a lot of Buckeyes getting a lot of experience on the field and making it look just so damn easy that right now this team is ranked 4th in the country, 7-0, and in a prime spot to win a Big Ten East title. But, Chris, this coming Saturday, 1 week from today, 12 o'clock in the Horseshoe on Fox, the 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes taking on, what are they, the 6th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers, as long as Wisconsin wins today over Illinois, which they should be able to do quite handily. But this is a big one coming up here, Chris. And indeed, like you just pointed out earlier, we all thought Cincinnati would be the first big test. And then we thought Nebraska. And then we even thought Michigan State. Now, this is indeed going to be the first big test the Buckeyes are going to face. Even if Wisconsin somehow loses at Illinois today, which ain't going to happen, but if it does, I still say, and I think everybody else would agree, that this is going to be the first real huge test that the Buckeyes are going to face. Now, I know you like to prepare, and I don't know if you prepared a whole lot as far as stats and whatnot for Wisconsin. And since they played today, I haven't really prepared a whole lot either because I like to see the two teams on an even level as far as games played and where they're ranking at come Sunday. But all I know is that Jonathan Taylor's good. Jack Cohn is an okay quarterback. Their defense is insane, and it's going to be an absolute shit-kicking slobber knocker of a Donnybrook come next Saturday.
Yeah, so listen to this. Points allowed per game, 4.8. They're not even giving up 5 points a game, Andy, through 6 games. Now, granted, some of the offenses they played have been a little anemic. They played Northwestern. I think they played Iowa, maybe.
Michigan.
But they, 4.8? I don't care who you're playing. 4.8 is impressive.
Exactly.
173 yards a game. I think that's number 1 in the country, that 4.8. And I know that 173 yards a game is top 5, if not number 1 as well. Their defense is ridiculous, and I'm really excited to see their defense playing our offense. On the other side, this would definitely be the best offense that the defense has faced. They are one-dimensional, and traditionally, when Ohio State plays a really good offense that's one-dimensional, like pound the football, they've been able to contain it, if not completely shut it down. The 2014 Big Ten championship game versus Wisconsin, right, where they had I'm trying to remember what the running back's name was, but he was a Heisman hopeful, and basically they like held him to 15 yards or something silly. But that's happened a lot of times where they played a guy that was just like supposedly all-world running back. Indiana had it back in the Kevin Wilson days. Some guys that were, they're going to go play in the NFL. They're getting, 150, 200 yards a game rushing. Wisconsin's these teams that they were one-dimensional, and Ohio State shut them down. Now, granted, this is a whole new defensive staff, so we'll see. And this is a different philosophy than what Ohio State's been running for a long time. Ohio State's been like a man-press team for a long time, and they do man, but they do zone. They mix it up a lot. It's a different look than what we traditionally have been used to seeing for the Silver Bullets, at least for the last 10, 15 years. So that'll be interesting to see. But I kind of feel like they're not going to hold the Badgers to 3 points like they just did to Northwestern. But I don't think like Wisconsin's going to run roughshod. Like Wisconsin is getting 42 points a game. I don't think we're going to be in a shootout with Wisconsin. I think I think they probably hold them under 30. And
I think both teams will score under 30 points. This ain't going to be no shootout. No, this is going to be a hard-fought, smash-mouth, Big Ten style football game. And traditionally, Wisconsin and Ohio State, that's about the only way that those two teams play.
Right. Noon kickoff Saturday.
Noon. Man, I thought this was going to be a night game.
Noon in the Horseshoe.
I know. And I got to work frickin' next Saturday.
What?
I mean, I get off at noon, but I'm going to miss like the first half hour or so. Hell, maybe the first hour because of the branch I was transferred to is a lot different than the branch I used to work at.
Wow.
Anyways, I don't even want to go into that. To your point, Chris, Wisconsin's defense. Are you ready for this? Are you ready?
Give it to me.
Defensively, in the nation, not just the Big Ten, in the nation, they are number one in scoring defense, rushing defense, passing yards allowed, and total defense. That's just those four categories. They're also second in the country in red zone defense. They are also fourth in the country in turnover margin. They are also first in the country in third down defense. Dude, this is I said second in the country in red zone defense, but on the flip side, Ohio State, the third best rushing offense in the country, the fourth best scoring offense in the country, the fifth best team passing efficiency offense in the country. And Ohio State just happens to be third in the country in passing yards allowed, second in the country to Wisconsin in total defense, fourth in the country in team passing efficiency defense, and they happen to be the best team when it comes to third down offensively in the entire nation. And they're fourth in scoring defense. Dude, this is nuts. This is blowing my mind. I mean, seriously, this game coming up this Saturday, I'm starting to get fucking goosebumps right fucking now because I'm getting so fucking fired up for this game, dude. This is going to be probably one of the best, and I hope, one of the best football games that we've seen. I don't know, since maybe the Michigan game last year. I mean, God, it seems like at least once or twice a year, Ohio State is involved in some kind of crazy top-ranked game. But this game is going to be so huge coming up Saturday. I'm starting to give myself a headache because I'm yelling so much. I mean, dude, I just cannot wait. This is going to be just an absolute Donnybrook, man. I can't fucking wait.
I hear you, bro. I hear you. I will say this. I mean, as amazing as those stats are, I mean, they're amazing. Don't get me wrong. They are amazing. let's look at who they played. They've got 4 shutouts out of 6 games. When you're shutting out 2/3 of the people you play, that's pretty stinking cool, right? It's pretty stinking cool. But they played, who were those shutouts? That was Southern Florida, who's a 500 team. They're 3-3, but they're playing in the American Conference at 3-3. Central Michigan, a MAC school. Kent State, MAC school. Michigan State, who is
MAC school.
Pretty much. Their offense at least is a MAC school offense.
Oh God, I don't even know about that. They might be high school.
Yeah, I mean that offense is prehistoric and awful. And then the 2 games that they actually gave up points were the offensive juggernauts of Northwestern, which they gave up 15 points to Northwestern, and Michigan, where they gave up 14 to Michigan. Michigan, the team that beat Iowa 10-7. Or was it even 10-7? Was it 10-3? I forget.
Yeah, it's 10-7.
So, I mean, nobody in here has an offense. They've played 6 games against teams that are either overall they're clearly outclassed, like a Central Michigan or a Kent State, or teams with prehistoric offenses or just awful offenses like Northwestern, Michigan, and Michigan State. So, yes, even I don't care if it is Northwestern, Michigan State, Michigan. The numbers they're putting up are ridiculous. The 4 shutouts in 6 games. Ohio State hasn't had 4 shutouts in 6 games. They've had, 1? The 4.8 yard. I mean, all those stats are crazy. Obviously, they're good. You're not able to do this. They'll put up those kind of numbers. I don't care who you're playing unless you're really good. So their defense is good. Their defense is great. And that's going to be fun to watch them play Ohio State. But, this is going to be unlike anything that defense has seen. This Ohio State can attack you in so many ways. Try to take away the run. Okay. Good luck with the pass. I mean, they've got Justin Fields looks amazing passing the ball. They're, loaded with NFL wide receivers, tight ends. Now they've got JK coming out with these beautiful looking pass plays to JK. They were making comparisons to the greatest show on turf with Marshall Faulk, and I was like, yeah, I can see it. This isn't just a little screen pass. These were unique plays that I don't know how any defensive coordinator, gets any sleep when they've got Ohio State on the schedule the next week, because they're just freaking scary. So yeah, I don't see them stopping Ohio State. Maybe they can contain Ohio State. Maybe Ohio State doesn't get 40. But I'm thinking Ohio State gets in the 30s. So I'm going to say 34 to 23. That's what I'm going to say. I think.
Ooh, an 11-point win for the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so here are the scores for the last few years between Ohio State and Wisconsin.
There's been some close ones.
Aside from the 59-0 shellacking that the Buckeyes gave the Badgers in the 2014 Big Ten Championship game, and, but last time, of course, they played 2017 Big Ten Championship game when the Badgers were undefeated and ranked 4th in the country with a shot at the national playoff on the line. And the Buckeyes, who had 2 losses and were 10th ranked, ended up winning that football game in a close one, 27-21. The year before in Madison, if you remember that game, a crazy overtime, 30-23 Ohio State victory. That was a hard-fought battle. 2013 in the Shoe, 31-24 final score, Buckeyes. The year before that, 2012, Buckeyes escape with another overtime win in Madison, 21-14. The year before that, when Wisconsin was ranked, I think they were 15th in the country, and Ohio State wasn't, because that was the Luke Fickell year, and they were sucking it up. And the Buckeyes pulled off the improbable when our boy Braxton launched that long bomb down into the end zone to Devin Smith. He caught it in the back of the end zone, and the Buckeyes won 33-29. So the last time the Buckeyes lost to the Badgers was when they were ranked number 1, undefeated, 2010, and the Badgers were ranked 18th. Final score, Wisconsin 31, Ohio State 18. You'd have to go all the way back to 2001 to find the last time that Wisconsin has beaten Ohio State in the horseshoe, and that was a final score of 20-17. So, I mean, dude, you look at these scores, and there's a couple of quasi blowouts here and there. Obviously, the 59-0 Big Ten championship game. Buckeyes did beat Wisconsin at home in 2009, 31-13. They beat them at home in 2007, 38-17. But otherwise, man, I mean, it's within, like, some of these games are just within a field goal or a touchdown, maybe 10 points,
Yeah.
So a 34-23 win in the shoe. I don't even see it that close. My way too early prediction for this game, because once again, I mean, even though I'm kind of doing my homework now, and I've already seen what I've seen, and I'm probably going to make a prediction, but I'm going to start changing it throughout the week. But I typically like to stick with my initial prediction. I think this could be another overtime football game or a last-second field goal.
Wow.
I think it's going to get – I do, man. I think it's going to get dirty. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get nasty. They're just going to be out there smashing helmets. This is obviously going to be the toughest football game Ohio State's played up to this point. Same for Wisconsin, obviously. This is going to be a true test for both of these teams, and I think you're going to see them slug it out. And I think it's going to look ugly. It's going to look, there's going to be some Buckeye fans out there like, what the hell's going on? Why can't Justin Fields run? Why can't J.K. Dobbins run? Why can't he throw the football? Blah. I mean, but it's going to get nasty. And I think I'm going to go ahead and say it. I hate to do this because you know me and my reverse psychology. I like to look at the glass half empty, and I like to go against the Buckeyes in these kinds of games just for the reverse psychology factor, because I feel like when I pick them to win, they lose. But I'm going to pick them in this one, but it's going to get ugly and nasty. Final score, Ohio State 20, Wisconsin 18. I'm going to pick a weird, goofy score. 20-18 final score. Buckeyes pull out the W.
Wow. Well, as long as Ohio State wins, if they had a game that went 4 quarters or even overtime, slugfest, one of those losing and needing to score because you're losing in the fourth quarter kind of games, it's battle tested is the term I'm thinking of here, right? You kind of want to be battle tested. You don't want to be like one of these Miami Hurricanes around the turn of the century, rolling through the Big East and being completely untested by the time you get in the bowl game, your big game of the season. You get the national title game. Back then you just had one game, right? You get the national title game and you haven't been tested the entire year, and that's your first time being tested. You don't want to be that. You want to be battle tested going in, having had that, you've got the moxie, you've got the swagger, when you've been down, when you're playing Alabama in the BCS playoffs, and do they even call them the BCS playoffs? Anyways, you're playing Alabama.
No.
And
no, but that's right. and BCS, then playoff.
Yeah, when you're playing Alabama and you're losing in the second half, you want to be like, you know what? We've been here before. We know what to do. No big deal. You're not crapping your pants, right? So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. As long as Ohio State gets the W, if they get a nice solid test, have to play, leave the starters in there all the way to the final whistle, I would be okay with that, especially considering it's, you're talking about the number 6 team in the country or something like that. So
yeah.
Well, and
this game adds up. This game adds up perfectly for Ohio State because the fact that they have had such a weak first half of the schedule after next weekend.
Have they?
I mean,
strength of schedule?
Yeah.
No. So, okay.
I don't even want to hear this stupid bullshit Jeff Sagarin ridiculous fucking dumbass. I'm Jeff Sagarin. Let me pull out my calculator and plunk a bunch of numbers into my computer. Beep, bop, boop. Here, let me pull out my pocket protector. Yeah, I'm Jeff Sagarin. Yeah.
So let me just say this. Computers are not biased, right?
I hate
Computer rankings are not biased. They are just looking at numbers.
I don't care. No, but you got a human putting them in, so they are biased.
No. They're just...
You've got a human being making up some number, like Jeff Sager goes, oh, well, I think that this win is deserving of a 0.5237% because, I don't know, I said so.
No, that's not how it works. You're wrong, just like...
Yes,
just like you thought it was
bullshit.
1 point.
Fuck Jeff Sager.
Just like you completely... didn't know that like one snap is all it took to ruin a red shirt. You were so wrong on this. All it is.
I don't give a fuck. This is my goddamn opinion. Fuck Jeff Sagarin. Fuck computer rankings.
Well, let me just say,
put a group of people into a room
rankings,
like they do now.
But Ohio State has the strongest strength of schedule among all the undefeated teams. Now it's not. It's still like 25 or something like that. It's not like
stronger than LSU.
Yes.
No. How? How?
So,
LSU has 2 top 10 wins.
So why are
that right there? I think it accounts for more than anybody that Ohio State's played.
Hey, listen to me. Right now, the Big Ten has 4 undefeated teams. Now, if you look at the rankings, Ohio State's ranked pretty high. Wisconsin's ranked pretty high, but they're not. None of those are 1. So why is it? If you look at the rankings are by humans. And every person in the world is saying Ohio State looks like the best team right now. Why in the hell are Alabama, LSU, and Clemson ahead of Ohio State when their records are identical? Well, now until last night, their records were identical. Now Ohio State's 7-0. Why are those 3 teams ahead when their records are identical, but Ohio State looks way better? Ohio State's blowing teams out of the water. Ohio State has the widest margin of victory of any in the country. It's because of humans and bias. Same thing, like you've got, 4 teams in the Big Ten that are undefeated. Of the seven undefeated teams, 4 of them are in the Big Ten. Did you hear the Big Ten being talked about as the number 1 conference? No, you hear it's the SEC. Why? It's all humans. So this top 25, yes, LSU has 2 top 10 victories, but those top 10, are you trying to tell me Florida is really, the second best 1-loss team out there behind Notre Dame? How do you know that? How do you freaking know that? When I watch them, they don't look that good to me. Top 25 team, probably. But, right now, number 9 team in the country, I don't see them being a top 10 team. I don't. So that's like, when and the computers don't see it either. When they look at, they don't see top 10, 2 top 10 victories. They see they beat some teams that had some wins by various points of margin. And when they look at it and say, Ohio State beat some teams with various points of margin, you know what? Ohio State's strength of schedule is tougher. The only reason that you would say it's not tougher is because you're looking at these rankings, which are made by humans, which are biased.
So then when it comes time to pick the top 4 in the country, when 13 human beings go in and sit down and discuss matters, are you going to argue it then too and say Jeff Sagarin should be the one picking the national playoff because he put shit in a computer?
So my argument.
No, I'm just saying. That's how the playoff goes, right? Jeff Sagarin's opinion don't mean shit.
Listen, I'm not saying humans pick the teams that go in the playoffs. I'm saying it's played on the field. It happens. So which means the conference champions from the 5 power schools get in. And then you can let the computers pick the other 3. I'd be completely fine with that. I think that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Oh, God, no.
You would have, I guarantee you if you did that, you'd have at least the top 5 or 6 best teams in per year. There's always an argument over the end. Like with 4 teams, there's always an argument. Well, who's that 4th team? And there's always 3 or 4 teams vying for it. So if you go with 8 teams, yes, the 7th and 8th slot, there's going to be an argument of like 5 or 6 teams that could get that 7th or 8th slot. And that's going to still be the case whether you have humans doing it or whether you have computers and conference titles doing it. So, but this way, I'm telling you, like you would nail the first 5 or 6, which would be as good or better than what we have now, where it's like you don't you get the top 2 or 3 for sure, and then it's kind of a question mark after that because the committee there's it's you're just not sure. Like when you're trying to evaluate, a team, all these teams that have one loss. So that's what I would say.
Let me ask you this: didn't we already try that? Haven't we already tried this whole computer equation? And in fact, didn't we ask Jeff Sagarin for his geeked out calculator computer calculations to be part of the BCS? And we got to a point where we said, okay, this is stupid. We're going to go back to a traditional way of having human beings, not computers, pick our contestants in a 14 playoff. We already tried the computer route when we were at the BCS. We already asked numbskull Jeff Sagarin to be in it. And we figured out after a while, this formula is not working. Let's get back to basics, and let's actually use our brains and have human beings decide who should play. Not friggin' Jeff Sagarin putting in the Harris poll, geeking it up with their friggin' pocket protectors and calculators and figuring out who should be playing in a football game.
So let me say this. The BCS national title game using computers was 100 times better, 1,000 times better than what we had before that, where the top 2 teams...
No, you say that, and I disagree. Ohio State 1998 should have played over Florida State in spades. Ohio State was the best team in the nation in 1998, and they got cut out because of one stupid loss at home by 4 points to Michigan State.
And then...
Bullshit.
And then, when they went to 4 teams over 2, it was dramatically better. Not because they cut out computers and went strictly with humans. It's because they went with 4 teams instead of 2, because it's ridiculous to have 2 teams out of 130 Division I teams when nobody's playing the same schedule. There's no way you could possibly... In fact, we're seeing at 4. 8 is going to be dramatically better than 4. They're going to go to 8. It's just a matter of time. And it's going to be better.
Oh, I know, and I disagree
and it's
with
going to be better than
but
4.
It's coming.
So this has nothing to do with computers as to why 4 games is better than 2. 4 teams is better than 2. The computer rank, that 2 was at least like the top 2 teams played each other head to head.
I'm not sitting here saying that, this is better than, I'm not sitting here saying that 4 is better than 2 because of the human factor and all that. I'm simply saying I don't agree with Jeff Sagarin saying that Ohio State has the best schedule out there in the country of all the undefeated teams. I take a look at LSU. They're undefeated. They've beaten 2 teams in the top 10, and you can say what you want, but I disagree that any 2 opponents that Ohio State has beaten are better than Florida and Texas. Okay? Right now, no teams out there are on the level that even Florida and Texas are on that Ohio State has beaten. Nebraska's not, Cincinnati's not, Michigan State's not. None of them are. That's my thing, though, is that Sagarin's coming out and saying, oh, well, because of this stat and that stat and that stat and this, Ohio State's got the hardest schedule of any unranked team. I disagree.
So that's 2 games. That's 2 games. I agree with you. I agree with you that those 2 games are harder than anybody of the games Ohio State's had. But that's 2 games. Your schedule is more than 2 games. If you then go play the Little Sisters of the Poor, Division III high schools, I'm sorry, the total strength of schedule is not as good. So you can sit and argue about 2 games all you want. You're not arguing the whole schedule at that point. You're just a part of it.
Well, but as far as I'm concerned, playing those 2 teams trumps the entirety of Ohio State's schedule. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Ohio State hasn't had good competition. I did kind of say earlier that their schedule's been weak.
If that's your argument, Ohio State should just play Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan, have a 3-game season.
Well, then how about Alabama playing LSU, Florida, and Georgia every year?
Yeah, that's it. Be like, all right, we're done. Why even play these other games? Because they don't matter. It's all we're going to care about is your top 2 teams. I mean,
I'm not saying that. But at this point in the season, I'm sorry. I feel that those 2 teams, being as good as they are, okay, and you can say that you don't think much of Florida. You can say you don't think much of this team, that team, and this team, and that's fair. That's your opinion. I've just got my opinion, and that's it. That's how I feel about it. You know what I'm saying? So I just can't stand the fact that somebody wants to rely on a computer to make the decisions for them. We're smart enough. We're capable enough. And yes, I'm sorry, that's being a human.
Are we really?
That's the brain. Yes, we are. We are. We're the ones programming the damn computers in the first place. Let me tell you what, Chris, we're going to outsmart ourselves trying to have computers do everything for us. It's going to turn into the fucking Terminator, and then everybody's going to die, and we're going to have to fight the fucking robots just to live and survive every day. That's what's going to happen.
How do you know we're not already in the Matrix? That already hasn't happened.
We might be.
We're not.
Exactly.
We could be copper tops right now.
I mean, sometimes I take the red pill, I take the blue pill. Sometimes I take them both, and I have no idea where I'm fucking at half the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another fired up, insane edition of the Buckeye Leaf Cast. And my man, Chris Stefanik, dude, brother, I love talking football with you, man. This is so much fun.
It's a good time.
I'm telling you what, brother. Thanks again for leaping on with me, taking time out of your Saturday to talk a little Buckeye football. And before we hop off the microphones, anything you can think of to tell the fine folks out there?
Just come check out my YouTube channel, Zen Large, Z-E-N Large, or go to zenlarge.co. I've got some music there. I'm about to start putting some vlogs, some personal development vlog kind of stuff up on YouTube as well. Just all about living that Zen life, baby. So Zen Large, look me up.
Nice. There it is. Look up the Intergalactic Buckeye fan. He's all over the place. He's living large, Zen style. Zen Large. That is awesome stuff, brother. Also, this edition of the Buckeye Leaf Cast brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christy clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. Also brought to you by Columbus Wired for your premier source for sports in and around the Central Ohio area. Be sure to check us out at columbuswired.net. And you can also check out the Buckeye Leaf Cast. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube as well. We are on Facebook. We are all over the place, as well as iTunes. We are on Podbean. Any one of those sources, you can come check out the Buckeye Leaf Cast. And we'd be honored for your patronage, wouldn't we, Chris?
Absolutely.
Go Bucks!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town, to the stadium to hear the band, by far the finest in the